Welcome back everybody to another discussions video. Now, as you could probably tell based on the title and thumbnail, today we are going to be checking out Battington's FNAF VHS tape series, I guess you could say. So, this was voted on by you guys, which was, this one ended up winning out, I think by a decent margin. So, this is what we are checking out. So a couple of things before we actually get into the main video. First, while I'm going over this, might as well go down and leave a like on the video, and while you're down there, might as well subscribe, because you're down there anyway, and I'd really appreciate it. But yeah, so the two things I want to cover before we get into it are that this video is less of an objective review of the series. So instead of just going over every single element of it and like breaking it down bit by bit, it's more of a personal review, so just my thoughts on the entire series, what I liked about it, what I didn't like about it, and sort of just going a play-by-play and just my opinion on it in general, rather than an objective, non-opinion based review. Secondly, I'm gonna not be covering the horror attraction video, and you might be thinking, well, why aren't you covering that one? Because I actually did a reaction to it like some 6 months ago. So it has been a while, and it was an older video, but I already did a full like 40-minute review of the video. So I don't think I really need to cover it in this one. I'll talk about it just a little bit, maybe at the end, but I'm not going to do it as part of the main review because I've already reviewed it. So I just want to cover the ones that I have not talked about and just kind of go off of that. But those are the two things I want to talk about, so let's just jump right on into this video. So this one is going to be broken down into, not really into sections, but how the video is going to go is we are going to cover each of the tapes slash videos one at a time. So I'll do them in the order that is on the official Battington FNAF related tapes playlist. So we'll just cover each of those one by one and basically just break it down what happens in the video. So for example, parts and service will be first, and I'll just talk about a play-by-play about what happens and just general thoughts as we go through it, and then kind of close off by talking about some fun things that I liked about the video, or just specific points about the video and story elements that they apply, and then we'll move on to the next video. So that's just basically how this is going to work. And then once I get through every video, we'll close off this discussion video by talking about just some general points from Battington's videos and just things that I liked and things that I didn't like overall, and just kind of close off with that, and that'll be the video. So without further ado, let's just jump right on into it with the parts and service video. So the first video released in the Battington FNAF VHS tape series, whatever, is the parts and service video, which is about a minute long. So there's not a whole lot to it. Basically, just a quick rundown. Essentially, we are in the perspective of somebody who is hiding from Freddy in the parts and service room, hence the name of the video. And he's just kind of sitting on the ground, and Freddy's walking in, and he's all like, "What you doing?" And he's got like his big goofy voice, and he's essentially looking for us. And so he not breaks the door, but he pushes the door open because our person didn't even bother closing the door. So he pushes the door open. He kind of keeps staring at our character, or our perspective, and then he's like, "Why are you hiding?" And then we turn and we see Foxy just right next to us, which is like, going into this, I knew that was there. If I didn't know that was there, that would have been like really scary, because like he just goes out of the, he's just sitting there, staring at you, and it's a great like early jump scare, and I think it's really creepy. Like, this one is a really creepy one. And then you just kind of get their faces flash in the original crew. So Freddy, Bonnie, Chica, Foxy, their faces flash. Some text is on the screen. And that is about it. There's not a whole lot to this one. And it's a good introduction video, I guess. I know most of these are... I don't think this one is, but I know a majority of these ones are remakes of... I think it's Scrimpus McGrimpus. who made the original ones, and Battington kind of remade them in his own style and with some of his own stuff. But I think this one is on his own. Don't quote me on that though. But all in all, it's a good introductory tape. Really scary. Kind of gets the feeling across of these tapes of just sort of that. I'm trying to think of the good word to use for these ones because it's less scary. I think a good word to use is more of just that dread, where you just like, you're in a situation or you see something that just makes your heart sink. So it's less like, oh my word. And there are some moments of that, like, this is scary, but it's more of that your heart kind of sinks. Just seeing Freddy walk through the door and staring at you and being like, oh, what you doing? And you're like, I'm just done. I'm toast. This guy's gonna get me. And so I really do like it about this one. But again, there's not a whole lot to really like go into depth on for this one. All right, so the next one in the series is the Fazbear Entertainment Video Manual 1, which I think is the first of the remakes, essentially. And again, this one's not too long. It's about 1 minute and 20 seconds, minute 18 to be precise. And essentially, you see Freddy. He's sitting on like a little table, and he kind of they go over some maintenance points, and some spooky stuff happens, and then the video ends off with a creepy picture. But we'll get to that in a minute. So you start off, Freddy's sitting there. They tell you to go push a button on his back, and then we get a shot of a ghost face, as I'm gonna say, just for a hair of a second. They show up on the right side of the screen and then they disappear. So our first sighting of the ghosts that possess the animatronics, which I guess is a bit interesting. You know, it's not like not super blatant, but it is a cool little like, whoa, blink and you miss it. Not a scare, but like a, whoa, that kind of, there's something there. Maybe I gotta go back and see it. So I do kind of like that, and it is some more intriguing parts of the video. So then the next, we move on. We are told to press something, and then the video cuts out for, it goes black for half a second, and then Freddy lights up for about a second as well, and is only able to play like 1 or 2 notes of his music box, which is a nice little touch. I appreciate that. And again, I don't know how much of this is actually like from the Scrimpus McGrimpus videos and how much is original to Battington. I don't know. So I'm only going off of what I see in these videos. And I generally appreciate that little like Freddy music box, because I always like the Freddy music box. So next we are told to go press a button on the back of Freddy's head, which then in turn allows us to remove his head, like in general, and we get to see his kind of creepy endoskeleton underneath, which really looks good. Then we just take his arms off, because like, who needs arms? We take them off, and then we take off his torso, and we see some kind of grimy stuff, mostly blocked off by a sensor bar. I wonder what could be underneath of there. Probably not anything good. And this is sort of one of those moments that I'm talking about where it's like just that moment of dread. And the dialogue here too really adds to that, where the robot voice is like, climb inside the torso and accept your, and then it cuts out. And it is like, it gives you that sense of dread. All the music's gone, it's just that static, and then you get that really creepy voice that's talking to you, and you just kind of, your heart drops. And I won't repeat that in every video, but I just kind of wanted to get the point across in some of these earlier ones so that you guys know what I'm talking about in some of the later ones. But yeah, it's just another one of those moments of like, it's not the scary aspect, it's more of that just like, I don't even know again like how to word it, but it's just that feeling, and it's something that these videos get across really well. But that is generally it for the actual video. That's about it. Oh, one little detail that I wanted to point out, and nothing crazy, but for half a second after the lights cut out near the end of the video, Freddy's eyes stay on, and it is a little bit of that more creepy part where his eyes are still active in the dark for like half a second before the video ends. Well, before this part of the tape ends. And it's just a nice little detail to be like, he's actually active right now. Like, you think he's just kind of sitting there, but he is active. And I like that. That's kind of creepy. And then I know it's supposed to be scary, and it is a bit of a creepy picture. Like, I'm not gonna lie, but but the first time I saw this, just I don't know what, just I think it's just the angle and the way that it looks. It looks like creepy Markiplier. It just looks like creepy Markiplier to me. I don't know why. I can't tell you why. I don't know, but it just does. Maybe it's like the more human aspects of Freddy's design, like they give him more human eyes and teeth, which adds to that more creepy. And it is a creepy picture, but I don't generally get scared of this one or creeped out by it, because ever since I saw it the first time and I was like, it looks like creepy Markiplier, I can't get that out of my head, so I'm not scared by this one. But it is a cool way to end off the video. There's nothing else to it. It's just kind of some buzzing, and he just stares at you. So that is generally about it for this video. Again, not a whole lot to this one, but a couple more moments to kind of build up on the ghosts. So we kind of get that introduction, as well as the actual children being stuffed into the animatronics, and how the VHS tapes, I guess, are being corrupted to show this, or whoever was recording this just didn't care. I guess, I don't really know, but we get some more, I guess not necessarily story, but we're starting to get some more, I guess you could say, story points to this series. Next up in our, I guess, the videos, is Bonnie joint movement test. Now this one out of these first three is the longest, nearly doubling the last video, with 3 minutes and 20 seconds. Now this one starts off with Bonnie, Freddy, and Chica, and the scariest version of Mr. Cupcake on the entire planet. They're doing a show on stage. They're doing some dances. They're having some fun. Except for Bonnie, he's kind of bugging out. He's glitching. He's not necessarily having the best time. And near the end of this little section, he ends up kind of glitching and staring at the person recording. And one thing I find interesting with this, I don't know if this is intentional or this is just how the video turned out. The last like 2 or 3 seconds of this little section, the person holding the camera, I'm assuming somebody's actually holding this, they like freeze in the place. Like the camera doesn't move around, it just freezes in the place at staring at Bonnie, which is just another level of creepy, because now you're not moving anywhere. Now he's just staring at you. You're locking eyes with this guy. But not a whole lot else to talk about there. Next up, we have more Freddy music box, and something I would definitely do if I was working here. We have a person in a Freddy suit, not the actual Freddy animatronic, but in an actual like glitch trap-esque costume of Freddy. He comes up, he comes strolling up, he's having the time of his life. He's doing his little like dum dum bum bum bum, and he's just coming up here. He's having a blast. And he's, I guess, some sort of, maybe not a manager, but some sort of like he's the mascot, right? But he's got probably some level of like training for these new people, for like the new people. And he talks to us about how we're a new recruit, and he's going to show us how to do some repairs, until he disappears before he can say 3. And then we're kind of left in this hallway area where there's not a whole lot happening until the door in the back slowly opens. And I'm not sure how to interpret this as like, did Freddy go through that door, or is it like ghost stuff? Like, I'm not entirely sure how to interpret this, but anyway, there's not a whole lot else there, and so we move on to the actual Bonnie joint movement. And here we go through a number of diagnostic movement stuff where we do head, arms, legs, ears, and eyes, and we kind of see Bonnie do a whole bunch of stuff. After Freddy talked to us about what to do, we start getting to Bonnie to move a bit, and so he's moving his head, he's looking around, he's doing his thing. And he's just staring straight forward, which is an important detail because I'm going to bring it up in a second. We go through everything. He does his head. That looks good. He does his arms. He's waving. We do his legs. Legs look good. We do ears. And Freddy starts glitching out a little bit. And so we do ears, except nothing happens. The ears don't move. And then we get this part, or I guess this video's section of dread, where we move on to eyes, and so far Bonnie's been looking forward, except when we move on to eyes, he's now staring directly at us. And oh man, it's giving me chills just talking about it right now. I have it pulled up on screen, and oh, it is giving me chills just sitting here looking at it. Something about him doing that sort of pizza sim thing where it's like, oh, he's just a regular animatronic, and now he's staring at us. I think another aspect of it is when he's staring forward, his eyes are like slightly closed, like the top of his eyelids are slightly closed, whereas when he's looking at us, he's wide-eyed. And so it just adds to that, like, just scariness. He's like just wide-eyed staring at us, and oh man, it just sends chills down your spine. And so he stares at us for a second, and then the lights cut out, and we have a little bit of a sister location moment where we're using the flash beacon, and there's some kind of creepy music playing in the background. And we kind of do this for a second. Bonnie shows up. He's like hiding in the shells, and then he starts charging us full speed by kind of like phasing in and out of different shots. And he does really creepy until he's standing like a shadow man in the corner. And that's about it for the video. I mean, we kind of went over everything. There's not a whole lot extra to talk about, except for the fact that they do a great job of making Bonnie just terrifying, which we all know he's the most terrifying one out of everybody. Bonnie is the scariest, and they do a great job of making him even scarier. And so I really like this one. Again, it's probably, I don't know why I said again, but I would say out of the ones we've covered so far, it is probably my favorite one, just because I love Bonnie. He's one of my favorite animatronics, and just that shot of him wide-eyed staring at us, I didn't notice it like the first time I ever watched these, because I have watched these before, so I'm not necessarily going to this blind, but the first time I watched these, I never noticed it. I just assumed it's regular Bonnie's doing his thing. This time though, I was watching it like late at night, and I was just going through all of them so that I could just have it refreshed and know what I'm talking about, and just going through and being like, all right, you know, we test the ears, nothing happens, and then just seeing all of a sudden, like actually noticing that he's staring at us wide-eyed, it was just like, oh man, scary. And I think that's probably a good way to just sum up all of these videos. But overall, I really do like this one. I think it's a good one, and while it doesn't give us too much in terms of like lore or story or anything, it does give us a good idea of like the fact that these animatronics, I'm trying to think about how to word it, but like there's some more haunting aspects of these animatronics, and that's what I like about it. Like we see Bonnie on stage and he locks eyes with the cameraman. He's not scared to show that he's actually like kind of sentient. And then we get obviously the storage room, and we get a really creepy shot of Bonnie. You know, he's standing in the corner. I don't know how he teleports so fast. I'm not sure how he does that, but you know, we could just leave it up to like glitchy VHS stuff. But he is scary in those shots, especially when he's just like, he kind of looks like Shadow Bonnie. I don't know, something about those looks just really scare me. But overall, not a whole lot aside from just some general spooks and chills. Again, not a whole lot of story, but that will change in this next one. Alright, next up on the block is the sound response check. Now, this one is also the new longest one out of all the ones we've covered at 4 minutes and 40 seconds. So adding a lot more content, and it is well worth it. So at the start, we are in the perspective of, I'm assuming, a little girl who, I don't know why she has a video camera washing her hands, but you know, it adds to the creepiness. And we see her turn towards the entrance where we see Chica just hiding around the corner staring at her, and it is another unsettling thing. And I wanted to say this before we get any further into this one. I watched this one probably around the time it came out, because these were big and I was kind of into this kind of stuff at that time, and I still am obviously, but I was into FNAF VHS at that time. And this one was like, I got scared by this one. I don't even know how to word it, but this one gave me nightmares. I'm just gonna say it straight. This one was just scary. But anyway, so moving on, we see her kind of creeping around the corner, and now we are hiding in a stall, and Chica comes in looking for us, as she's telling us that it's time to go home. And yes, it is. It is time to get out of here, except our POV person makes the wrong choice of actually talking, and Chica just very scarily turns towards us. And our next shot is Chica standing outside of our stall, and she's opening the door. I don't know why we didn't latch it. I guess Chica probably could have just ripped the door off anyway, but she slowly opens it and kind of peeks around the corner. And I have to say it, Bonnie was scary in the last one. Chica is the scariest animatronic in the series, by far. Especially when her eyes are like hidden by shadow and they're sunken out. She looks terrifying. So she comes creeping around and starts doing some really creepy laughing. And as she opens the door and reaches in, which is just terrifying, we get to see Bonnie Bun, or Spring Bonnie. We get to see his ears poking over the top of the stall door as Chica comes in reaching for us. And I'm just going to say that's the part that really scared me in this one. So the next shot then is Chica. She's freaking out from the scream. Her eyes roll back as she most likely breaks down, which is why we need to do the next part where, something's wrong. Chica's audio's been thrown off, and so now we have to do a series of audio tests. Not a whole lot to talk about with the audio tests specifically. She generally listens about what she's supposed to do. Audio plays and she looks in the direction she's supposed to. Occasionally a shot of a Susie sprite, so just a little girl sprite, but obviously it's supposed to be Susie given the context of the video, will occasionally show up every so often. One time she shows up in front of Chica after the test, I'm pretty sure, like after the thing goes away. And then another shot is of she shows up kind of over top of Chica inside the torso for like a split second, which obviously implies that Susie is in there. And so that's about it for the audio tests, except the last one where Susie shows up. Chica is just staring directly at us, which is just terrifying. Not to mention her creepy stinking cupcake, which is just also terrifying because it has way more of a face and it's just scary. But we get these really scary shots of her staring at us, and then it says, oh, we're going to play some more audio, except it doesn't. And it moves on to a little bit of a cutscene as Susie gets led by Spring Bonnie into the back room, which, in the context of the video, doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. I was trying to piece this together as Chica reaches for Susie, but it's also kind of implied, like, so that's when Susie gets captured because Spring Bonnie's there. However, we also see her getting lured to the back room. So I had a little bit of an idea on how to make this part make sense. And that it's not two separate people, obviously. It's all about Susie. And so I think what makes sense to me is we see Spring Bonnie there, and we see Chica freaking out at the audio from Susie's screaming. So what my thought is, what if William Afton obviously had Chica go in there to try to quote-unquote get Susie, right? And so Chica goes in there, except the whole point was to have her malfunction. And so Chica malfunctions from the screaming, and maybe Spring Bonnie is able to kind of put her out of commission and then says, oh, these animatronics, Chica's going crazy, follow me, I'll get you out of here. And so that's when he lures her to the back room. And so he acts as sort of a saving presence of, look, Chica's gone crazy, we got to get you out of here. So obviously that's not anything that can be confirmed, but that's just sort of my idea as what happened. It's able to sort of piece together both stories, and it makes sense as to why she would follow Spring Bonnie if he's like, hey, I'm here to help, let's get you out of here, because Chica's gone crazy. So I think that works. But anyway, so these next shots, we see a faded picture of creepy looking Spring Bonnie, and he's luring the Susie sprite to the back room, and there's this really creepy music playing, and Susie's like, this music makes me feel better. I don't know how. but it's really creepy music. But, you know, whatever floats your boat. So then she starts talking about how it makes her think of birds and how she likes birds. They're pretty, coincidentally put in the Chica. And how one time she saw a bird sleeping in the snow, and that's what bad dreams are about, which obviously implies that the bird is no longer with us. And so she gets lured in the back, and she talks about how she feels like she's sleeping in the snow and that she can't get up because it's too cold for her to do that. And how things don't breathe when they're sleeping in snow, and that she can't breathe, which obviously she's been stuffed. And that is what she's talking about. She can't breathe in the suit, which to me, kind of, to talk about another creepy quote-unquote VHS series, I guess you could say, with the Wallen Files, which I will not be covering because those things are terrifying. I have seen some stuff on them, and how the animatronics, the people who are put in the animatronics, talk about how they're still alive and that they're hungry and they can't breathe, but they're inside the animatronic suits. And so that's what kind of makes me think about, like, for this, is Susie goes, I can't breathe, I can't move, I'm stuck in the snow. And that's what she's feeling being in Chica. She still feels like she's Susie, but she's like, I'm stuck in this thing and I can't get out and I can't do anything. And she's just a confused spirit, which adds a lot more to the lore of the story. But to wrap things out with this one, before we kind of just go over general stuff, we're back to Chica staring at us, super creepy, and the part that adds even more dread to this video, not like there wasn't enough already. Chica's mask slowly falls off, and we get a shot of Susie's head and face inside the animatronic, inside Chica's head, and it is just unsettling and nerve-wracking, and you can hear it in my voice right now. I have it up on screen. Oh, it's just something about it. It just sends chills down my spine. It's just so eerie, but so good. And then for the last split second, we see perspective of Susie inside Chica, looking through the eyes of the suit at the other animatronics slumped over in the back, saying, I can't breathe. So that's just a quick rundown of that. The story we get out of this is the story of Susie and how she was stuffed. So now we're actually starting to see more about the kids, more about how they've been stuffed, the situation behind it, and generally just more of the actual FNAF lore, which it comes across really good and really scary, and generally probably the scariest one out of all of these. If I'm just gonna say it, for me, this is the scariest one out of all of Battington's videos. Just something about this one, I think it's just Chica, but this one's the scariest to me. But we get a lot more of the story, despite the fact that a majority of it is just the sound test, hence the name. But we get more of the story about how Susie got lured to the back, but also caught by Chica. Maybe my idea makes sense about how Afton saved her just to lure her to the back, but who knows? Because there's not really an official response as far as I'm concerned. So that's generally it for this one. The scariest one by far, and the probably one filled with the most story thus far. Obviously, some of these later ones have a lot more story to them, but this one has the most story thus far. So the next one is a relatively quick one, not much to talk about. It's just called Give Life, and it is a YouTube short format video where the puppet shows up. They make some creepy noises and there's some creepy music. They reach down and open a lid to a present box, and Fredbear comes charging out, or I guess Golden Freddy, but they're the same thing. And he comes charging out and jump scares the viewer, I guess. That's about it. There's not a whole lot to that one, but it shows our first introduction to Fredbear and the puppet, so I guess that's something there. But yeah, not a whole lot to this one, but I thought I would just mention it anyway since it's on the official FNAF related tapes by Battington, so I thought I'd had to mention it at least. Alright, so the next one up is the Pirate Cove pre-show. Now this one is definitely the longest thus far at 8 minutes and 15 seconds, and definitely has the most story to it out of all of them thus far as well, where we get to see Foxy go over the Pirate Cove pre-show. And so he does his little routine. He's talking, and he's like, "Oh, hoy, I'm a pirate, and the show's about to start." Well, what? And he starts talking to Freddy and the gang, and Freddy's like, "Yo, guys, let's get ready to go." And Chica's like, "I'm gonna sing," and does some of the worst singing ever. And then Freddy's like, "Come on, Bonnie, let's start packing up." And Bonnie's like, "Yeah, I'll start packing up." And then he slips in the most cartoon fashion ever, which we don't obviously see, we just hear. And then Foxy tells everybody to stop around on the shore. And no, he says mucking, not the other word. But so he tells everybody to stop that. And and I just find it funny. I don't know why, but so he's like, all right, he does his little like ultimate custom night with Funtime Freddy, like, don't show up a moment before, a moment later, and you're gonna walk the plank, and he does his little laugh. And that's the whole pre-show for the first section. We get multiple iterations of the pre-show, but that's it at the start. So then we move on to a shot of Foxy peering out of Pirate's Cove in a really creepy fashion, and somebody is recording him looking out of Pirate's Cove. Really creepy, but also done really well. And now we get another addition to this video, which is the Foxy Go 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 minigame shown off, which I really do like. So we see Go 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 flashed on screen, and we see a room full of 5 kids, and it's a really creepy room. And they're all sitting down, and they're all like, "Yay, it's Foxy! We all wanted to see Foxy," and they're all happy. They're smiling. They're weirdly proportioned bodies. They're all smiling. And then we move on to the pirate show again, and nothing really changes in this one. They're all doing the same thing. That Foxy tells everybody to stop mucking around again, and then moves on. And my favorite part is just when he's like, "Stop mucking around." Anyway, it just moves on. I don't know why it's funny, but so he just does. So it's the same thing as the first one. And now we move on to the second part, where we see Foxy peering out of Pirate's Cove again, except this time near the end, his jaw starts moving and his hook starts opening the curtain as he's just dead locked with the person recording. And it's really creepy. And then we get another shot of Go Go Go, except this time Foxy is actually running down the hallway. We see him running FNAF 1 style. He's going, and we get a shot of I think it is a kid, or maybe it's Foxy. It's hard to tell, but we get a shot of somebody staring at the camera through some like glitchiness. And now we get to see, hooray, the kids are happy, except there's one less kid. So now we move back onto the pirate show again. He's doing his thing. Freddy's talking. Chica's trying to sing. Freddy goes and says, "Go on, Cottontail." And we go to Bonnie, except something's not right. He's censored, and there's a lot of stuff, a lot of ick and grime coming off of him in this one, and a lot of stuff that I'm not going to say because I don't know how well YouTube's going to take it, but a lot of stuff oozing out of places that it probably shouldn't be. And we see some very lifelike eyes instead of the regular animatronic eyes, which obviously thus Bonnie has been stuffed. Our first kid is now stuffed inside of an animatronic, which is really creepy. And the fact that the music cuts out, it's like this really creepy audio in the background. But so that's really the only change in this one, except for the fact that the rest of Freddy's audio goes out. And now we get back to Foxy. He tells everybody to stop doing their thing, laughs, and then he actually disappears mid-laugh at the end, where we move on to just hooray, everybody's happy, except now there's another kid gone. There's only 3 left. And now we're back to the pre-show again, and the audio and quality is starting to go down by a bit. Now we look over to the stage where Foxy's like, "Come on, guys." And we see Freddy, who has also just been stuffed, and also has very human-like eyes. Very creepy. And so now all of his parts and Bonnie's parts are taken over, and Chica does her singing until she glitches out, where we hear presumably Susie's scream, and Chica turns purple, which is interesting given the fact that she was seen with Spring Bonnie in her sound response video. But she turns purple as she stops mid-scream, and then we kind of get the rest of the show where Freddy's kind of just talking. We cut over to Bonnie, we cut back to Freddy, And we cut to Foxy, and he's doing his thing where he's like, anyway, let's just keep going. So he does his thing, and now we're back, and there's only one kid left. And now we're back to about bank security camera level quality of video, where everybody's moving at like -3 frames per second, and Foxy's talking. You can hardly hear what he's saying, and then the stage is all messed up, and now we actually get to see Chica stuffed, and hers is probably the scariest because we can't even see the bottom part of her jaw, but it's just a really scary sight. They're all stuffed, really creepy. And then we get back to Foxy. He's doing his thing, and he's like doing his whatever. They censor Foxy. Finally, somebody had to do it. And the tape starts going, you know, the generic viewing of this tape is prohibited. Discard it immediately. Which, I don't know why you'd put that on a video, like, ever. Just delete the video. Or I guess if it's a VHS, just destroy the VHS. But, so they have their, you know, viewing of the tapes prohibited. Except as the tape goes away, and we cut to the next shot, we get a split-second blink and you miss it shot of Foxy being stuffed. It's a blink and you miss it shot, but you do get to see Foxy stuffed, and he actually isn't censored, surprisingly. Probably because there's not a whole lot to really see because it's already red, but you get to see an eye popping out and a lot of grime coming off of him, but Foxy has been stuffed. And now we come to a shot of an empty room. The chairs are empty, but we see Spring Bonnie. And he does his little dialogue where he's like, what's the matter, Foxy? I thought you wanted an audience. And then some creepy shots of the crying kid spirits show up. They're really creepy and very unsettling. But they show up and there's some creepy music playing, and Spring Bonnie's like, ha 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 ha, I'm evil. We cut then to just a shot of Foxy. He's standing in the hallway and he's just staring wide-eyed. This is either before or after he's stuffed, but he's staring at a door at the end of this very awkwardly long hallway, where we see the door slowly open to Golden Freddy being suspended by, let's just say, a harness. They're being suspended, and they're kind of freaking out. They're glitching, just like some of the other animatronics were doing earlier, until Golden Freddy settles down, and they stop glitching. They're done. And that is where the video ends. Definitely a very creepy one. I don't think it's scarier than Sound Response to me. Like, first, I just don't find that one as scary. There's a lot more unsettling parts, but I didn't find there was very many parts of dread like we had in the other ones. Like, to me, there's not really a part of, like, my heart sunk because this is just so frightening that it's just, like, fight or flight response. Like, I never had anything with that in this video, but altogether it is still a very scary video, and it goes over each person being stuffed with a lot of Foxy stuff to it, obviously, since it's his video. But we get the Foxy Go 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 minigame interpreted, and we get to see the animatronics all being stuffed with their respective person, we'll say. And that's generally it for the video. Not a whole lot else to talk about aside from basic FNAF lore that we all generally know, but altogether is a really good video. I enjoyed it, and has probably my favorite line ever in any of these videos. So just another quick one, like the whatever the other one was with the puppet. This one also has the puppet, except it's a lot shorter, and it's just the puppet doing their like pizza sim thing where they're peeking out of the box and looking around and then going back in, and then we just get a small shot of the puppet just staring at the screen, and then that's about it. Not a whole lot to talk about with this one, but again, it's in the playlist, so I thought I'd bring it up. So this next one, which is called Non-Existent Video, is by far the longest out of all the ones we're going to be covering, and obviously the longest out of all the ones that we've done so far as well. And it's definitely one of the more story-heavy ones in terms of characters and just story in general. The last one, or I guess Pirates Cove, was very story-heavy for the kids, and now this one is story-heavy for the other characters. So at the start, we get a little introduction to Fredbear's Family Diner, and we're talking about the mascots that can be worn or that are suits. We get a little comparison, and then we get a shot of Fredbear, and they're talking about like, oh, you know, the costumes will only be used, and it blinks and it kind of flashes for a little bit, before we cut to the next shot. Except one thing that I wanted to bring it up that I don't see a lot of people talk about whenever I would like see the reviews on this is that in the split second that the video kind of like fades and not fades but like glitches into the next shot, Fredbear actually turns and looks at us and leans in and like kind of charges the camera. It's a blink and you miss a shot, but he does do that, and I haven't seen a lot of people really bring that up, but I thought it'd be something that I'd bring up. So he turns and charges the camera, and now we're in the perspective of Fredbear on stage. And I don't know if we're supposed to be a person in the suit or if we are the animatronic. So because we're doing our little dance, Spring Bonnie is singing. I'm assuming we're probably supposed to be a robot, actually. I know we hear breathing, but we don't have the robot or the fake eyes down. But I guess we are a person because we hear breathing. We look over to the left, and we see what is presumably William Afton kind of standing there, really creepy. He's just kind of standing there awkwardly. And then we get what is my favorite moment. I'm going to say it's my favorite moment in all of Battington's videos, just because it's kind of fun and scary. We get a spring animatronic crawling around. It is, I think it's Spring Fredbear. I don't know why I said Spring Fredbear, just Fredbear. And he doesn't have his suit on, but there's an alarm going on in the background. It looks like it's sort of out by like the workshop area, and he's only in his I think it's, is it, oh, I think maybe it's fiberglass. It's something glass. He's in like an outer casing, and he's crawling around, and he's kind of communicating with Spring Bonnie, and they're singing Happy Birthday, and they respond to each other, which I think is fun. But he's crawling around, and he's really creepy. And so yeah, they're singing Happy Birthday. It's really sweet. They really care about each other. And then he deactivates for a second until Spring Bonnie finishes the song, and Fredbear charges our cameraman, where we get an interesting detail where his fiberglass faceplate's open, circa like Sister Location style, where it's a split second, but yeah, his faceplate's open, which I don't know if that's Battington talking about, or like kind of trying to show that Sister Location and Fredbear's Family Diner take place at the same time, which canonically would make sense based on what we know. But it is an interesting detail that they have faceplates that open. But all in all, this is my favorite part in all of these videos, just because it's like kind of fun that they're singing Happy Birthday, and it's just kind of really creepy animatronic crawling around. But we move on from that, where it's just, I guess, to show that these animatronics are also sentient, I guess. But now we get the next shot where they talk about how the suits work. You got a costume, you got fiberglass, you got the exoskeleton, and they talk about spring locks and how dangerous they are. Like, we didn't know that. So pretty much just don't use the spring locks. That's the moral of the story. So they talk about the suits and the whole process of putting on the suits, which I don't know how William was able to do, being chased by ghosts. Somehow he was able to do that and put this whole thing on. It took like 10 years. I know Game Theory not made fun of it, but it was like kind of laughing at that fact too, where it's like, how did William get it on in this universe all by himself? Because you need like 10 hand crank points on the back, and there's a lot of work to this, but somehow he's able to do it. He's a strong man. He's able to do it. So they talk about just putting on the suit. Not a whole lot to really go over there. And next they go over spring lock failure protocol, which is essentially just die, where it tells you don't panic, don't move, call for help, calm your breathing, and have a co-worker help you out. But essentially it's just die, because there's not a whole lot you're gonna do. So then the video cuts to a shot of just black, and then it shows not a split second, but like a small bit of text talking about Fredbear's jaw upgrade, which is going to be very crucial information, where they talk about hydraulic presses being added into Fredbear's jaw to move it up and down more. And then we get a shot of what is presumably crying child getting chomped, and then we get Fredbear with some red stuff around his mouth, zooming in on camera until he goes, "I bit someone," which obviously is him biting crying child. And then out of the blue, we get a shot from FNAF 1 of Phone Guy talking about how he's not going to make it. And then we see Golden Freddy show up for a split second, where they kind of not disrupt, but they fade in the screen, and we cut to the next shot of Freddy, Bonnie, Chica, and Foxy, similar to how they were in the parts and service video where they're kind of flashing on screen, except it talks about how the 4 tapes were hidden inside their empty heads. Freddy ripped apart with a smile, talking about his maintenance video. Bonnie dancing in the dark, which is talking about his joint movement test. Chica and her wonderful song, talking about the sound response check. And Foxy, with Foxy in the Happy Man, or meets the Happy Man, which is talking about his Pirate Cove pre-show. And it says that we were gifted and that we found the 5th, where Fredbear shows up on screen for a split second with his creepy looking eyes, and then it goes out. And now we get a shot of the puppet talking to Michael, this is where like the story really kicks in this one, because the puppet basically just goes, oh, your brother got chomped, he'll forgive you, but there is something wrong with the suits and I'll show you. And so we get to see somebody getting spring locked, which looks absolutely painful. They take a step and get spring locked. I don't know why they kept moving, but they get spring locked, and then we see people running in to presumably try and help them, although I'm assuming it's a bit too late. So the puppet says that the same thing happened to our dad, which is obviously William, and it killed him, but not for long because he always comes back. But now they ask, do we want to find them? The puppet will show us where to find William, and just basically tells us everything that we need to do in FNAF 3. That there'll be like a gas canister and we're going to burn the place down. That William will be there. He will look different, but we will know it's him, and we can end all of this madness. We can end it for good. And the puppet is basically just like, I know how you feel, Michael. There's a lot of stuff going on. That everybody will be free. The kids will be free. Michael will be free. And that the puppet's forgiven Michael. I don't know what Michael did, but that the crying child will forgive us as well, and that the puppet's basically been manipulating everything behind the scenes, and then ends off with, I love you, Michael, which I don't know exactly know what that's supposed to mean, but then we kind of get the final shot of Fredbear and Spring Bonnie just kind of doing their like, goodbye, we're gonna miss you here at Fredbear's, and then the video comes to a close. That is a very basic rundown summary of the entire video, but yeah, there's a lot of story to go in here, and obviously I'm not going to cover like everything, but all in all, we get the story of essentially how William got spring locked, and how Crying Child got chomped, and how Michael's involved in all of this. So whereas the Pirate Cove pre-show and the previous videos were all about the kids and their stories on how they got stuffed, this video is an Afton video, talking about how the Aftons ended up where they are, except for Elizabeth, but obviously that's like sister location stuff. But anyway, so we get to learn a lot about how the spring animatronics work in this universe, and what is arguably a great looking Springtrap. We don't get to see much of him here. We will in the next video, but we get to see him over top of some flames, and he looks pretty cool. But that's generally about it. I'd say my favorite part in this video has to be, I already brought it up, but has to be that part where the robot's crawling around and he's singing happy birthday. I love that part. But that's generally about it for this one. I know there's not a whole lot to talk about though that I already didn't cover going over it, but yeah, so that's a non-existent video, and the next two are a little bit shorter, back to the more basic format of the earlier ones, which isn't bad, but we're moving less from story and more into just more of the creepy videos again, which I guess that's something else that happened in this one. There was not a moment of dread that I found in this one. There wasn't a moment where I was like, oh, this is just like so scary, I'm frozen in fear. That didn't really happen in this one, but it does happen in some of these next ones, especially the last one that we're going to be covering. So this next one is called Late One Night at Fazbear's Frights. A nice little like kind of a rhyme there. This one's back to the shorter format. This one is 1 minute and 36 seconds. Not a whole lot of story here, but for the first like half of the video, like probably third of the video, we get a shot of Springtrap just staring at, I'm guessing, I don't know if this is supposed to be a POV or if this is somebody holding a camera, but we are sitting in Fazbear's Frights, and Springtrap is just standing there. And I gotta tell you, this is probably one of the coolest looking Springtraps ever. He is terrifying looking, but he's just standing there staring very blankly at us, which it could be that the video is, I mean, the video's moving, so to me it implies that this is like real time, which would make sense because we know that when you play FNAF 3, sometimes if he's looking in the window or if he's outside of your office and he's just staring at you, if you just stare at him back, he won't do anything until like something else happens. So it's a nice little bit of detail if this is actually like taking place in real time, that if you just stare at him, he can't really do anything, or he won't do anything. So that's just a fun little bit of detail that I like there. But closer to the end, a really unsettling image of a kid shows up on the right side of the screen, like a kid screaming. And then it kind of quick zooms in on Springtrap and then shows the picture of the kid and cuts to a POV of our person walking through Fazbear Frights. Now, the shot of the kid showing up and Springtrap being all creepy, that's probably the most unsettling part of this video to me. Is just, again, that's the part of, that's where the dread shows up in this one, where it's like, oh, it just makes you get chills down your spine. But anyway, we get to see our person walk up to the Springtrap attraction part of the Fazbear Frights thing, which is fun to actually see how they would have had him displayed had it opened, where he's like behind this caged fence and they have a little thing that's a Springtrap. He's got a knife in his hand. He's doing some stuff and he's talking. I don't know how they didn't really care. There's a body inside. But we get a shot. So Springtrap deactivates, looking to the left, and our person kind of is confused because the power goes out. So he looks around, and as we look back at Springtrap, he's staring dead at us, which somehow our person doesn't notice. But Springtrap's staring at us. The lights flicker, and Springtrap disappears. Where did he go? So then it moves on. The puppet shows up at a door that was behind Springtrap, and they're doing their FNAF 3 sound effect. And then Springtrap jumps up on the fence. Whoa, scary. And he lifts up his mask to reveal his face, which obviously we know is William. But it is really cool to kind of just see it like, I don't know. It's a cool way to show off the Springtrap, opening up his mask. Sort of like the like hidden, not hidden, but like those sort of bonus images you could get in FNAF 3 where it's like Springtrap's trying to rip the suit off and you get to see his skull inside. That's sort of what this reminds me of, where it's like he's taking the top part of his mask off and you just get to see his face underneath, and it's really cool. I like it. And we get the FNAF 3 jump scare sound effect, which you gotta love. And then the end is just some music playing and a shot of Spring Bonnie kind of just fading up and down on the screen. Not a whole lot left of that, and not a whole lot of like story except for kind of showing us a little glimpse at Fazbear's Frights. But yeah, that's, again, there's not a whole lot to talk about with this one, but I just thought I'd cover it anyway because obviously I kind of need to. So the second to last one that we are going to be covering in this video is motion detected in Cam 4. Now this is our first and thus far only FNAF 2 shot with the toy animatronics, but at the start we hear was presumably a kid or somebody running into this room. We hear somebody running around, and then we see the door open and the night vision on the camera turn on, and we get to see our look at Toy Bonnie, who walks into the room, obviously using his facial recognition scanners to look for whatever was moving around in this room. And he kind of fades around the room a little bit. He moves around, he looks around, he's looking for this thing, until he all of a sudden suddenly sharply looks and starts staring at the camera really creepily in his typical FNAF 2 style, which you gotta love those eyes. So he starts showing up, and then the lights in the room turn on, and there's nobody in here. It's empty. Then the lights turn back off. We see the shape of Bonnie show up on screen, and we hear some weird laughter in the background. And then the camera turns back on, and we see a shot of a face, which gives me some Walton Files, Mandela catalog kind of stuff, where it's like, oh, that's the sense of dread in this one. You were expecting Spring Bonnie, and instead you got a human face, and it just like, it gets to me all the time. And then after that, he kind of freaks out, he laughs, he glitches out, and we get a shot of Spring Bonnie, and he's just kind of sitting there, and he sings a little song, and he's basically singing like what he says is he found a way inside. He's hiding in the shadows, which is talking about, I'm guessing, William, who found his way in, which is probably the person we saw and heard running around, where William found his way into the FNAF 2 location, which we know happened because of how FNAF 2 works. We know that somebody came in, used a suit, was messing with the animatronics. But anyway, more with this video specifically, Toy Bonnie slowly gets closer to the camera until he's like right in front of us. And then that's about it. He kind of just sings his song, and not a whole lot happens outside of that. So again, there's not a whole lot really story-wise with this one, except it's a good way to kind of talk about FNAF 2. We got a good shot of Toy Bonnie, which looks really good in the Battington style, I have to say. I really like this version of Toy Bonnie. But we know that William snuck in, and he obviously is messing around with the animatronics and presumably other people that work here. And so it's just basically a quick little FNAF 2 snapshot. Not much else to talk about, but it is a really creepy one and brings back that sense of dread. Alright, now for the last one we're going to cover in this video, the case of Edward Morris. This one is back up with some of the longer ones at a 7-minute, I almost going to say like a whopping, but it's not that long, a 7 minutes and 7 second time. And so this one is a lot more story as well. Not necessarily FNAF story, but story with this person in particular, obviously Edward Morris. So we start off with our character, Edward, walking into, he's in Freddy Fazbear's, and he walks up to this little gated area that leads into the parts and service room. So he goes in, and occasionally you'll get these shots of him like taking a picture or something. This will be important in a little bit. So he goes in, he walks in, he's doing this because it's a dare, I think, but he's looking around, and we see an active computer and light on, Toy Bonnie sitting up on the desk, and the rest of the original animatronics, which are now the Wizards, sort of just crammed in the corner. They're just kind of standing there, they're not doing anything. They're looking a little creepy. Chica, creepy as always. But yeah, they're kind of just sitting there, they're doing their thing, not a whole lot happening there. And he takes another picture of them, which is like probably one of the blurriest pictures on the planet. It makes it look like Chica has a mohawk. I don't know what happened to this picture, but so he moves on. He's now just kind of looking at them, and I'm guessing as he's trying to get a better look at Chica, he knocks Freddy over, which, I mean, either Freddy was like really not trying, or this guy's like incredibly strong. He shoves Freddy over, and Freddy falls over. He knocks out some power, and for a split second, Edward looks back out the hallway, and you can see the ghost of a kid peeking around the corner, and then they disappear behind the corner. But you can see him. There's not really that split of a second. He's actually there for a while, but it's very hard to notice. It's very subtle, but they're there, and then they disappear. Very creepy, and it seems like Edward might have noticed, but he wasn't able to catch it fully on camera. And now we get what is the most unsettling picture in this entire video, and the first moment of actual dread. And I didn't notice this the first time I watched this video, but I was watching somebody else review this series, and they pointed it out, and I can never unsee it, and it gives me chills every time. You can hear me right now. This is a mild reaction, but we see Freddy. He's in a very goofy pose, which brings some fun to this. But in the upper left, over a shelf, you can see what is presumably William Afton's face looking over the shelf, staring at Edward, which obviously we know William is in this location, but so William somehow was able to just hide in this room, and it's so unsettling. Like, I can't even look at it. It's so unsettling. For some reason, it's obviously the human faces that do it the most. I just can't. It's so creepy. I almost hate it, but it is also really great part of the video. But that is like the most dread part of this video for me, is just seeing that face hidden in shadows smiling. But Edward then notices, so we're done with the picture. He moves on, he closes the gate, and Edward notices that Bonnie's gone. But he turns around and faces a bunch of static on his camera as Bonnie is standing in the hallway pointing down another hallway. And right now he's not saying anything, he's just pointing, making some static, but he's just pointing down the hallway. And then Bonnie starts talking about strangers, that there's a stranger. And he says in a very goofy voice, stranger. So he's pointing down the hall. He's talking about a stranger. And Edward follows his finger, whereas Bonnie's pointing down the hallway. And we get the second moment of absolute dread in this video. Spring Bonnie standing at the end of the hallway. Just a double whammy of this is just unsettling and sending chills down your spine. He's just standing there in the Spring Bonnie smile, just waiting. And it's scary. And now our next shot is a bit more like active, and it's pretty creepy, but there's a moment that made me laugh, and I will show you the comparison in a second because it is funny. But so we get a shot of Edward running down the hallway, being chased by Spring Bonnie. Then we see withered Freddy, or like a very withered Freddy, almost ignited Freddy, like show up on screen, and he's kind of freaking out. He's like twitching, he's glitching, and then we run into this arcade room, and we turn and see Spring Bonnie illuminated by the lights in the background, and he looks scary. And then we get this shot of Chica, and it's supposed to be scary, and she's kind of like freaking out. She's staring at the camera, she's twitching. except every time I see this, just like the Markiplier picture in the parts and service video where it's Freddy, but I think it looks like Markiplier, this one, the moment I saw it, it immediately made me think of the first Puss in Boots movie in the credits when you have the pigs and they're dancing in the hospital room. I don't know why, I just always think of that. It's the first thing that comes to mind whenever I think of this series, and especially this video. So it's a moment that makes me laugh in what is supposed to be a very scary video, which it absolutely is, but it's a moment that just makes me smile. So we get Chica, she freaks out, and then we get a shot of Edward hiding in some arcade machines, and Spring Bonnie runs past, which I guess he didn't see Edward hide. So Edward probably should have just stayed there. But our next shot then is Foxy. He's freaking out. It goes by pretty quick. And now we get to see the camera laying cracked on the ground. Spring Bonnie standing there, and Edward in the background banging on the windows and doors, probably asking for his friends to let him out because this was a terrible idea. And then it cuts to Spring Bonnie attacking the camera, and we see that one of his eyes are like dislodged, but we get to see him kind of beating up Edward, which is presumably what led to the camera falling on the ground. And then we know Edward doesn't make it. But our next shot is Bonnie in the same style of Freddy, Chica, and Foxy freaking out, except Bonnie's not freaking out. He just gives a little bit of a poem where he talks about how we hid our how we shed our hidden smiles, and a new fawn has come to play. But the fawn didn't listen, that there was somebody here, but there's no empty box to hold him, no silver eyes to see through, and that the little fawn just needs to run before all hope disappears, and that the golden hair is here, so the little fawn needs to run. And then the camera cuts to black, and regular Bonnie's eyes show in the shadows for a split second before it cuts to all the way black. And we get our shot of news, supposedly like news, I guess, talking about how 15-year-old Edward Morris was found inside an air vent at Freddy Fazbear Jr.'s, which is the FNAF 2 location in this series, after complaints of an awful smell that flooded the pizzeria. Edward Morris had gone missing because his friends dared him to hide in the building to prove that it was haunted. I don't care who my friends are or how much I would get paid. If somebody walked up to me and said, like some super rich person walked up to me and said, hey, we want you, there's this place that has animatronics, we think it's haunted, we will pay you $10 million to go into this place and observe hauntings. Like, not even a dare. If they paid me $10 million to go into some place that had presumably haunted animatronics to try to get some evidence, I would say, sorry, rich person who's trying to pay me to do this, I will not do this. You will not find me in 10 million miles of a haunted animatronic place. Anywhere haunted, anywhere creepy for that matter. I'm not going anywhere. You're not paying me enough money to do this. So somehow Edward was convinced to do this. And then it kind of just goes over some basic news stuff, you know, family wants to stew, yada, yada, yada. And then they talk about don't go out places alone and look out for this creepy man. And it's a really bad picture of Spring Bonnie. I don't know why they couldn't use a different one. Like, you can't really see any features on this guy, but it says don't go follow this man, obviously. And then the video kind of just ends there. There's not a whole lot else to it. So I guess the story for this one is more so just a case of misfortune rather than William going out of his way to do anything. It is just an unfortunate series of events of William happened to be here at the same time as this person was staying overnight, and led to some very unfortunate events for our character. So again, not anything that's like lore heavy or like anything too crazy, but it is a good look at the Wizards and gives us a look at what William's been up to, I guess, and what he does when there's no more suits. But all in all, it's a great one. Definitely one of the creepier ones. The fact that it has 2 moments of pure dread when William shows up in the hallway, and when you get to see the face hiding over Freddy's shoulder. I think this one definitely is up there in the scariest out of this list, and all in all is definitely one of my favorites because it is just so dreadful and eerie and creepy, and it's just, I love it and I hate it at the same time, if you know what I'm saying. But yeah, that kind of covers all of the main videos that we're going to be talking about. So to wrap up this video with a nice neat little bow, I'll just kind of talk about some general points that aren't necessarily video specific, and some things that I liked and some things that I may have not liked. There's probably not that many of those, but things that I did like are the animatronic designs, which is a bit surprising for me because I tend to be somebody who doesn't like when people change the FNAF animatronic designs. Typically, if it's like, oh, you know, somebody's making a new VHS series, or they're making like a new game, I don't tend to actually enjoy the design. I think a good example of it is JR's. I love JR's, like the game. I actually had a ton of fun with that one, but I wasn't necessarily a fan of the designs. They're good, they look really good, but it's hard to tell that they actually are the FNAF characters. And so for me, I'm not one that generally enjoys it, but I was surprisingly, I don't know what the word I'm looking for is, but these designs that Battington created, I surprisingly really like. I think they still come across as like, you can tell these are the FNAF characters, but something about them also is just like, they look really good on their own, but you can tell what they are, and they're really creepy. And I think just all of that really helps me to actually like these designs. So that's a major props here for getting me to like redesigned animatronics, because that is something I don't always like. Another positive is definitely how the videos, not necessarily structured, but how the horror in the videos are structured. Some of them aren't as scary as others. For example, in the non-existent video, I didn't find there was too many moments where I was like, my heart sinks and it's like, this is just terrifying. Whereas, like I had mentioned before, and some of these other videos, especially the sound response check one, there's moments where you're just like, it's just dread and my heart sinks. And I sometimes, you know, most of them had really good moments, at least one moment in each of the videos that had that. Like I said, the non-existent video didn't really have any of that. So that's a little bit, maybe not a negative, but a little bit of like I was hoping to have a bit more of that in that video. But overall, really good job with that kind of horror, because FNAF is typically like jump scare horror, right? Where you're like, oh, things are like, something's gonna happen, and then boom, out of nowhere, it's like, whoa, I wasn't expecting that, and then you get jump scared. Whereas this was more like, it's mostly subtle. Sometimes you'd have it like in Parts and Service, your character's like seeing Freddy, and that's like the dread. You're like, this animatronic is hunting me and this thing's terrifying looking, and then you turn and Foxy's like right there and you're like, oh my word, I wasn't expecting that. And you get some other stuff too, and something I'm not going to mention everything, but most of it is great with just the dread factor, because it's something that you don't always see with FNAF, but I think really works good in the FNAF setting. So that's also another major props there, because oh man, those kind of dread VHS videos really get me. Like, they make me scared sometimes. So I really do appreciate that about these as well. Those, most of the time, it comes across really good. So another good props to that. I guess another positive is the just visuals in general. I know I talked about the animatronic designs, but just the visuals in general look really good, and for the most part are like almost really good lifelike. I mean, you know it's not real, but for a lot of it you're like, this could be real, right? Like, I mean, you know it's not, so you're not necessarily fooled by it, but you're like, this is incredibly good. Like just the visuals in general, the settings, the way that the animatronics move, like all of this stuff, it feels very real and grounded. So you're like, this could take place. Like, this feels real. And that's what I really like about the visuals about this, is it's really good. And there's a lot of other FNAF VHS series that also have really good visuals, but something about Battington's just draws me in more with like, just the way it looks. It just really draws me in, and I really appreciate that about these tapes. They're really well made and they look really good. To kind of have a few more positives before I mention some negatives, is the pacing in the videos. Now, I know a good chunk of them are just the Scrimpus McGrimpus videos remade, but still they come across really well. The pacing is really good. There's moments, like some of the longer ones tend to keep you more drawn in, with some scary moments put throughout. Like, for example, the case of Edward Morris. I know it's only 7 minutes, so it's not that long, but you have points of like, these are some scary animatronics sitting in the back, so you're drawn in. And then if you notice it, you see the face sitting over the shelf, and you're like, oh my word, this is something bad's about to happen. And then, of course, you get the climax of it with Spring Bonnie showing up, and then you get the more like, here's the ending, here's where the scary stuff really happens. And the pacing overall with these videos is really good, where it tends to go from more slow horror to like, here's the main part of the horror, to kind of ending off on a slower note. And overall, I think it comes across really good. The longer videos are able to keep you more interested in the whole video, and then the shorter ones are obviously more quick, and so the horror can go by a lot quicker and you're still more scared by it. But overall, videos are well paced and really well made. And the videos that aren't based on the Scrimpus McGrimpus video, so Late One Night at Fazbear's Frights, I think, is a Battington original. Motion Detective in Camp 4 is an original, and the Case of Edward Morris really do well in still fitting the same style as the previous ones, but being, I don't know exactly how to word it, but like, them standing on their own still are really good. Especially the Motion Detective in Cam 4. That one almost gave me like Walton File vibes, when you see Spring Bonnie's head pop into the camera, but you don't see his face, and then the light turns on and it's a like person's face, and it just catches you off guard because you're expecting Bonnie, but then it's not, and it's a person, and it kind of has that like Walton Files-esque feel to it, and you're like, oh man, I wasn't expecting that, but it comes across really good. So overall, these videos are probably some of my favorite FNAF VHS videos out there. I can't say for certain because I haven't done a review on every single one, but as of right now, these are probably some of my favorites, just because they have just that feeling of dread in almost all of them. And for the most part, you would think that that'd be bad, but for these, it comes across really good. So but yeah, those are the like major positives and sort of just general facts about the videos that I really appreciated. So I guess negative wise, there's not too much that I can really think of that's like glaringly negative. I guess the only things would be some stuff like story wise, with like the puppet. In non-existent video, the puppet kind of just shows up out of nowhere and is like, hey, you know, I've kind of been here and I've been doing a lot of stuff, and yeah, that's me, and I'm gonna help you stop this. Michael, who also hasn't been mentioned in any other of the other videos. So in non-existent video, I think it's probably the one that I had the most negative stuff about, because it wasn't as scary. There were some great moments, like I said, some of my favorite moments come from that video, but there weren't really all that scary moments. And overall, it was pretty much Like, it just, a lot of it didn't feel like it connected with other stuff. And it was more of like the FNAF 4 based, right? We had the spring animatronics with the crying child, and then it ended off with FNAF 3 based stuff. But it felt the most disconnected from the rest of the series in terms of the videos that came before. Obviously, the ones that came after are more solo videos, but for the most part, non-existent video just kind of feels like a standout one in terms of like, it just didn't feel like it connected with the rest that had been building up this story of the missing children and leading to Springtrap, but it felt like some stuff was just kind of shoved in there to make the video have a bit more content to it, when I feel like you could have made the video into a FNAF 4 based one and then into a FNAF 3 based one, rather than having them be crammed together in one video. I guess if that makes sense, right? Like, have a video separated for, all right, here's what happened to the crying child, and maybe here's what happened with like Charlotte, Emily, and the puppet, right? Like, have some more context there and then go into Springtrap. But obviously no changing that now, and I still really like the video. It's still a good video, but I think that's probably really the only negative thing I have to say about this series, because overall it's really good and I really do like it. But that is gonna be it. I guess I said I was gonna say something about the horror attraction. Again, I'm not gonna do a full review of it because I already did that, but I remember when I had gone through and watched it, I think my biggest thing was it just felt so off compared to the rest of the videos. Like, the ones before had some paranormal elements to it, and like there was some spooky stuff going on, but for the most part it was just like scary animatronics, and that was about it. But like the horror attraction just felt weird because you have like time travel thrown in there, and William Afton shows up, and there's a big Freddy head that gives birth to William Afton's Springtrap, and there's just some weird stuff in that one. And so like it's good, but it's just weird, and I think that's probably the best thing I can say about it. Like, it just was odd, but overall it was still good. But I would say out of all of his videos, that's the one that's the most disconnected, because it doesn't really feel like his previous videos, because there's way too much like strange elements to it rather than the more like grounded elements that you have in, like, say the video that came before, right? In case of Edward Morris, where it's more grounded and it's like it's more of like this could happen to anybody kind of a video, rather than like this guy's in a time traveling attraction and Springtrap is there, but he's also like kind of a ghost, but he's not, and there's a big Freddy head, and it's all just kind of weird, but still well made. But all in all, I just found that one to be a little bit weird. But there's my little take on the horror attraction. But yeah, that's gonna be it for the video. So again, just a quick, I guess, thing. Really like this series, really like Battington's videos. They're really well made, really good. Overall, I really do enjoy them, with only a couple of downsides, but for the most part, they're really not that bad. And overall, I really just like this series, and if you guys haven't seen it, surprisingly, I would highly recommend going and watching them, because they are good, especially if like you haven't actually sat and watched through the whole video. I know obviously if you are seeing this, then you've gotten spoiled, but it's still a good watch to just sit and watch through them all, because they are really good. But yeah, that is gonna be it. So we'll kind of close things off here. If you guys want to go check out the poll to vote on what topic you want to see me cover next for my next discussion video, that should be up by the time you are watching this. So if you guys want to go check that out, it's on my community tab. Just go over and vote on what you want to see. But yeah, so we'll close off things here. We'll do Shameless Plugs. Go check them out. It's my Instagram. It's linked down below. And my channel membership is also there. So if you want, go check that out as well. I have some fun perks that get offered, but if you don't want to, that's fine. I also like to do a shout out to my channel member, Paloma Caraciello. Again, I hope I'm pronouncing that right. thank you for being a channel member, and if you guys want a member shout out, again, go check it out, but no big deal if you don't. If you guys want to say anything, or if you have any other game suggestions or stuff like that, you know, just let me know down in the comments, because I'm always looking for new games to check out, especially games that you guys want me to play. So if you have anything, just let me know down in the comments and I'll go check it out. But yeah, thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed today's discussion video. It was a bit of a different one, and it's fun to check out these FNAF VHS tapes. So if you guys want to see me do more, go vote on that in the poll. But yeah, if you made it this far in the video, comment. What should we have you guys comment? I'm trying to think. Comment creepy Markiplier if you made it this far in the video. And at that, I will see you in the next one. Goodbye.